Diary of a Soul After Death. I lived a life of struggle, disregarding public opinion, casting aside integrity, plunging into the whirlpool of fame and desire. I believed I was building an eternal empire, that wealth and power would etch my name forever in the annals of life. But when my final breath left me, I realized it was all illusion, like a passing breeze, like clouds dissipating atop a mountain. This diary is not written with ink, but with the invisible tears of a soul awakened too late, the day the breath ceased. On an unannounced day, I stood silently beside my own body, a cold, stiff mass on the hospital bed, wails of mourning mixed with hollow laughter. Those who despised me, whom I had trampled to climb higher, now danced with joy, eyes gleaming as if a burden had been lifted. Those who loved me, my mother, my siblings, embraced each other, tears streaming, trembling hands caressing my face one last time. I wanted to apologize, to hold them close, but I was merely a powerless shadow, drifting in the void. The day of the funeral. On the day of burial, my body was laid into the cold earth. The coffin slowly closed, the sound of soil falling like a farewell melody sending me to eternity. My enemy stood by the grave, smirking with satisfaction. Finally, he's gone. My loved ones turned away, heavy steps reluctant to glance back, fearing that memories of me would drag them into endless sorrow. I stood motionless, watching the earth gradually cover the face I once proudly admired in the mirror, my heart heavy with an unnamed sadness. 3 months later. 3 months passed, and in the dark soil my body began to bloat, emitting a stench I once abhorred. Maggots, creatures I had despised, now leisurely feasted on the skin I had cherished, adorned with expensive cosmetics and silk garments. I had sacrificed countless lives to pamper this body, with lavish feasts and delicacies, now reduced to a meal for insects. My wealth poured into it, like water through fingers, leaving nothing but decay. 1 year later. A year later, my body had disintegrated, leaving only dry bones lying silently in a decaying coffin. Above ground, my grave was covered in moss, rain and wind erasing the engraved name. On my death anniversary, people gathered, not to remember me, but to host musical parties, eating and drinking as if celebrating. My enemies occasionally during idle chats mentioned my name with irritation, as if I remained a thorn in their memories. My loved ones, in the quiet of night, wept silently, unsure whom to confide in. I stood beside them, invisible, helpless, my heart aching. Several years later. Years passed, and I no longer had a body, only remnants of bones mixed with dust. My enemies now vaguely recalled my name, my face once causing them hatred, now a faint image in memory. My loved ones, when mentioning me, showed brief silence before being swept into the bustling flow of life. The keepsakes I left behind, the expensive watch, the house I once boasted about, now in others' hands, no one remembering they were once mine. I realized that all I had fought for, all the competitions and struggles, couldn't bring along even a twig or blade of grass. Decades later. Decades later, my grave lay desolate, unvisited. The coffin decayed, my bones merged with the earth, surrounded only by overgrown weeds. My enemies, now senile, had forgotten who I was. My loved ones, one by one, joined me in the earth, taking with them the last tears shed for me. To this world I had become nothingness, no trace, no memory, as if I had never existed. The wealth, property, and fame I had schemed to keep now, mere illusions vanished in the wind. A belated awakening. I suddenly realized a bitter truth. In life, whether rich or poor, when we close our eyes for the last time, we leave everything behind. What we carry with us isn't gold or hollow glory, but the virtue and kindness we gave while alive. I had mocked those who lived kindly, believing the wise were those who knew how to compete. But now, standing in the void, my heart swelled with deep regret. I had lived chasing splendor, only for it all to vanish in an instant. 100 years later, I was just an anonymous mound of earth. There were moments I wondered, if I had known this earlier, would I have lived differently? If I had understood that the soul could also decay, not through physical decomposition, but through numbness to grace, through indifference to God, through days lived without prayer, confession, or communion, would I have let my life drift in illusion and sin? While alive, I hosted grand feasts, indulging as if death would never come. But I failed to sacrifice, to practice self-denial, to atone, to offer even a cup of cold water to the thirsty, to lift my eyes to the one who hung on the cross for me. I had heard people say, "Be vigilant, for you do not know the hour the Son of Man will come." I scoffed, thinking I had plenty of time. But when that hour truly came, I was unprepared, with a desolate soul, a life that treated skipping Sunday Mass as trivial, a list of sins never confessed. I had lived as if the world were eternal, but now it's my soul that remains forever, and it is naked, impoverished, empty, lacking even a single genuine act of charity to lean on, a wake-up call for the living. Life flows like water, fame and fortune like drifting clouds. Only love and compassion remain. I wish I had understood this sooner, had lived more sincerely, loved more instead of engaging in meaningless struggles. Knowing that the world is a temporary inn, why cling to victories and grudges? Sit beside a grave and ask the souls beneath what they carried with them. The answer is a cold silence, but enough to awaken me from the fleeting dream. If you're still alive, pause for a moment, look in the mirror, and ask yourself, what am I living for? Don't wait until you're lying in the cold earth to write a diary full of regret like mine. Live so that when you depart, you carry no regrets, but the light of love and kindness. For that is the only baggage that never decays, even when your body has returned to dust. The misguided words of a teacher. Only the uneducated and ignorant believe in religion. The classroom fell silent after that statement. My heart stirred, not out of anger, but from a deep sense of unease and a yearning for understanding. As a Catholic, I couldn't let such a sweeping judgment pass without introspection. Yet at that moment I lacked the words to respond. I left quietly, determined to seek clarity. I embarked on a journey, not to argue but to comprehend. I believe that true faith welcomes inquiry, for if it is light, it will illuminate even under scrutiny. After thorough research, I returned, not to confront, but to engage in sincere dialogue with the professor who had made that remark. I asked, "Professor, in your opinion, which country is currently the most advanced and developed in the world?" He replied promptly, "The United States." I continued, "Do you know how many Americans believe in God?" He looked at me puzzled. "Why do you ask?" I responded gently, "Because you mentioned that only the uneducated believe in God. Yet statistics show that over 80% of Americans profess belief in God, including many professors, doctors, engineers, and scientists. Are they all uneducated or ignorant?" I went on. "I once thought as you did, but upon reflection, I realized that many of the world's greatest scientists were people of profound faith. Isaac Newton, the father of classical mechanics, Albert Einstein, who spoke of a God who reveals himself in the harmony of all that exists, Blaise Pascal, a mathematical genius who prayed daily, Georges Lemaitre, a Catholic priest who proposed the Big Bang Theory, Louis Pasteur, Max Planck, Johannes Kepler, René Descartes. All these individuals were believers, and their contributions have left an indelible mark on humanity. The professor paused, then said, I was merely conveying what's in the textbooks and fulfilling my role as an educator. I nodded respectfully. I understand, and I appreciate your willingness to listen. I believe that genuine knowledge doesn't fear challenges, and sincere faith isn't afraid of misunderstanding. I asked further, Professor, do you think something false can endure for long? He replied, No. Truth prevails eventually, while falsehood is exposed over time. I smiled. Thank you. I feel the same. If Catholicism were false, it would have faded long ago. Yet for over 2,000 years, it has persisted, spreading hope to billions. That reinforces my conviction. I left the professor's office with a light heart. I hadn't won an argument. I had reaffirmed my faith, a faith I once questioned, but now embrace more fully. If you believe in God, don't fear judgment. Live with integrity, kindness, and selflessness. Loud voices don't equate to truth, and degrees don't guarantee understanding. On every US dollar bill, the phrase, "In God we trust," is printed, a testament from a nation considered advanced. And I, a young student, say the same. I believe in God, not out of ignorance, but because I've come to understand that the deeper one delves into truth, the more one finds reason to believe.